The rhythmic thump of Karen's fist against her neighbor's front door shattered the still of the night. She stood on the porch, her pink fuzzy robe billowing in the cool breeze, teeth gritted in unadulterated fury. "Open up, you inconsiderate jerk," she bellowed, slamming her palm against the wood. "I know you're in there." Inside, Aiden groaned and rolled over, pulling his pillow over his head in a futile attempt to drown out the commotion. He had been asleep for all of 2 hours when the pounding had started. Peeking an eye open, he glanced at the clock. 3:07 a.m. Asterisk, what the hell could she possibly want at this hour? Asterisk, he wondered, heart sinking as he recognized the unmistakable voice of his HOA president, Karen. The banging continued, relentless and grating. Aiden knew he couldn't ignore it. Karen would just keep going until she got what she wanted. Begrudgingly, he dragged himself out of bed and shuffled to the front door, flipping on the porch light. "What is it, Karen?" he asked, voice thick with irritation as he cracked open the door. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" Karen's eyes were wild, her usual meticulously styled bob now in disarray. "You know damn well what time it is," she spat. "And you also know that you're in violation of the HOA parking rules." Aiden blinked, perplexed. "Parking rules? What are you talking about?" "Your driveway," Karen exclaimed, gesturing wildly. "You got cars parked all over it, blocking the sidewalk. It's an eyesore and a hazard." Aiden glanced outside, where 2 nondescript sedans were parked in his driveway. "Those are my guests' cars," he explained calmly. "They're staying the night." "Absolutely not," Karen shrieked. "The HOA rules clearly state that driveways are for resident parking only. No guests allowed." Aiden stared at her dumbfounded. "Karen, it's the middle of the night. Can't this wait until morning?" "No, it cannot wait," she seethed. "Those cars need to be moved immediately, or I'll have them towed." "Towed?" Aiden repeated, incredulous. "You can't be serious." "Try me," Karen growled, her eyes narrowing to slits. "You have 15 minutes to get those cars off your property, or I'm calling the tow truck." With that, she spun on her heel and stormed off, leaving a bewildered Aiden in her wake. He watched her go, shaking his head in disbelief. Asterisk, this woman is absolutely insane, asterisk, he thought, running a hand through his sleep-tousled hair. Reluctantly, he stepped outside, bracing himself for the confrontation he knew was coming. As he approached the cars, he could see the dim silhouettes of his guests stirring inside, roused by the commotion. Asterisk, this is going to be a long night, asterisk, Aiden sighed, steeling himself for the battle ahead. Aiden approached the first car, tapping lightly on the window. The passenger door creaked open, and his friend Nora peered out, her brow furrowed in confusion. "Aiden, what's going on?" she asked, voice thick with sleep. "I'm really sorry about this, Nora," Aiden began, "but I need you and Samantha to move your cars. Karen's on the warpath, and she's threatening to have them towed." Nora's eyes widened, and she glanced over at the car next to hers, where Samantha was just starting to stir. "What? At this hour? You've got to be kidding me." Aiden shook his head grimly. "I wish I was. She's given me 15 minutes to get you guys out of here, where she's calling the tow truck." "Unbelievable," Nora muttered, rubbing her eyes. She turned and reached over, gently shaking Samantha's shoulder. "Sam, wake up. We've got to move the cars." Samantha blinked owlishly, disoriented. "Huh? What's happening?" "Karen's threatening to tow us," Nora explained, her tone harried. "We have to move the cars right now." Samantha's eyes flew open, and she sat up with a jolt. "What? Are you serious?" Aiden nodded. "I'm afraid so. Come on, let's get this over with." The 2 women scrambled out of the cars, their movements bleary and uncoordinated as they hurried to start the engines. Aiden watched anxiously, glancing back towards his house every few seconds, half expecting to see Karen charging back at any moment. As the cars pulled out of the driveway and onto the street, Aiden let out a relieved sigh. "Thank you, guys. I'm so sorry about this." "Not your fault, dude," Samantha assured him, stifling a yawn. That woman is completely off her rocker. Nora nodded in agreement. Seriously, I can't believe she's pulling this crap in the middle of the night. Yeah, well, welcome to the wonderful world of HOA presidents, Aiden said with a wry chuckle. I'll make it up to you guys, I promise. No need, Nora said with a wave of her hand. Just get some sleep. We'll catch up tomorrow. As the women drove off, Aiden watched them go, feeling a mix of gratitude and resentment. Why did Karen have to be such a nightmare? And why did she always have to make everything so damn difficult? Shaking his head, Aiden turned and headed back inside. Bracing himself for round two, he knew Karen wouldn't be satisfied until she had her way, and he had a sinking feeling that this was far from over. Aiden barely had time to close the front door before Karen came storming back up the driveway, her pink robe billowing behind her. Well, I see your guests have finally taken the hint, she sneered, her gaze sweeping over the now empty driveway. Yeah, they're gone, Aiden replied wearily, running a hand through his hair. Happy now? Hardly, Karen scoffed. This is just the beginning. I'll be filing a formal complaint with the HOA board first thing in the morning. Your blatant disregard for the rules cannot be tolerated. Aiden felt a pang of dread. Dealing with Karen was one thing, but the entire HOA board. This was about to get ugly. Come on, Karen, can't we just let this go? He pleaded. It's the middle of the night, and everyone's tired. Can't we talk about this tomorrow, when we're both a little more rested? Absolutely not, Karen spat. The rules are the rules, Aiden, and I intend to uphold them. No exceptions, no excuses. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowed to slits. And let me make one thing clear. If I catch so much of the single guest car in your driveway again, I'll have it towed. Immediately. Aiden opened his mouth to argue, but Karen held up a hand, silencing him. And that's not all, she continued, her voice taking on a chilling edge. If you continue to defy me, I'll see to it that you're fined. Heavily. And if the fines don't work, I'll push for more drastic measures, like suspension of your HOA privileges or even foreclosure. Aiden felt his stomach twist into knots. Karen was dead serious, and he knew it. She had the power to make his life a living hell, and she wasn't afraid to use it. Karen, please, he pleaded, his voice barely above a whisper. This is ridiculous. Can't we just... No, Karen interrupted, her tone final. I'm done discussing this. You have your warning, Aiden. Don't test me. With that, she turned and stalked back to her own house, leaving Aiden standing on his porch, heart pounding. Asterisk, this is not going to end well. Asterisk, he thought. Dread settling in the pit of his stomach. He knew he had to find a way to reason with Karen, or his life was about to become a living nightmare. The next morning, Aiden braced himself for the inevitable. He knew it was only a matter of time before Karen made good on her threats, and he was desperate to find a way to diffuse the situation before it spiraled out of control. As he sipped his coffee, he replayed the events of the previous night in his mind, wincing at the memory of Karen's furious tirade. He couldn't believe she was willing to go to such lengths over a couple of parked cars. It was absurd, and Aiden knew he had to find a way to make her see reason. Just as he was about to head out the door, his phone rang. Glancing down at the screen, he felt his stomach drop. It was Karen. Steeling himself, he answered the call. Hello, Karen. Aiden. Karen's voice crackled through the line, her tone clipped and authoritative. I trust you're aware that I filed a formal complaint with the HOA board regarding your blatant disregard for the parking rules. Aiden grimaced. Yes, I'm aware. Karen, can we please talk about this? There's nothing to talk about. Karen interrupted, her voice hardening. The rules are clear, and you've chosen to ignore them. Now, you're going to face the consequences. Aiden's heart sank. Karen, please, let's be reasonable about this. Reasonable? Karen scoffed. I've been more than reasonable, Tate. You've had your warning, and now it's time for action. Aiden could practically hear the smug satisfaction in her voice, and it made his blood boil. Karen, this is ridiculous. It was just a couple of cars for one night. Can't we? No, we can't. Karen snapped. The HOA board meeting is this afternoon, and I'll be pushing for the maximum penalties. I suggest you start getting your affairs in order. Before Aiden could respond, the line went dead, leaving him staring at his phone in a state of stunned disbelief. Asterisk, this can't be happening. Asterisk, he thought, his mind racing. He had to find a way to defuse the situation before it spiraled out of control. But with Karen leading the charge, he knew he was facing an uphill battle. Sighing heavily, he set down his coffee and headed out the door, bracing himself for the inevitable confrontation with the HOA board. He knew he had to be ready to fight for his home, his reputation, and his sanity. Asterisk, this is going to be a long day. Asterisk, he thought, his jaw set with determination. Asterisk, but I'm not going down without a fight. Asterisk. As Aiden pulled into the community center parking lot, his stomach was in knots. He knew the HOA board meeting was going to be a bloodbath, with Karen leading the charge against him. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the confrontation, then headed inside. The meeting room was already buzzing with activity, and Aiden could feel the tension in the air as he approached the table where the board members were seated. Karen was there, of course, her arms crossed and her expression smug. As Aiden took his seat, she leaned forward, a predatory gleam in her eyes. "Ah, Aiden, so nice of you to join us," she purred. "I trust you're ready to face the consequences of your actions." Aiden swallowed hard, forcing himself to meet her gaze. "Karen, I'm here to talk this through reasonably. I'm sure we can." "Reasonably?" Karen scoffed, cutting him off. "You had your chance at reasonable, Aiden. Now it's time for action." She turned to the rest of the board, her voice rising. "As you all know, Aiden has been in flagrant violation of the HOA parking rules. Last night, he had the audacity to park multiple guest cars in his driveway, blocking the sidewalk and creating a hazard for our residents." A murmur of disapproval rippled through the room, and Aiden felt his stomach sink. He knew he was fighting an uphill battle. "I immediately addressed the issue with Aiden," Karen continued, her gaze narrowing, but he refused to comply. Instead, he allowed his guests to leave the cars there overnight, completely disregarding the rules. Aiden opened his mouth to protest, but Karen held up a hand, silencing him. "Now I'm here to propose a course of action. I believe Aiden should be fined the maximum penalty allowed under the HOA bylaws, as well as face suspension of his HOA privileges for a period of no less than 6 months." The board members nodded in agreement, and Aiden felt his heart racing. This was worse than he had imagined. "Karen, please," he pleaded. "Can't we find a reasonable solution here?" "There's no reasonable solution, Aiden," Karen interrupted, her voice sharp. "You've left us no choice. The rules are clear, and you've chosen to break them. Now you must face the consequences." As the board members began to discuss the details of the proposed punishment, Aiden felt a sense of dread wash over him. He knew he was in for the fight of his life, and he wasn't sure he had the strength to win. Just as the board members were about to vote on Karen's proposed punishment, the door to the meeting room burst open, and a familiar face strode in. "Hold on a minute, folks," said Aiden's neighbor, Samantha, her voice confident and commanding. "I think we need to hear the other side of the story here." Karen's face contorted in a mix of surprise and irritation. "Samantha, this is a private HOA meeting. You have no business being here." Samantha merely raised an eyebrow, unfazed by Karen's hostility. "Oh, but I think I do. After all, I was one of the guests whose car was parked in Aiden's driveway last night." The board members exchanged confused glances, and Aiden felt a glimmer of hope start to flicker inside him. "Samantha, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice low. Samantha turned to him, a reassuring smile on her face. "I'm here to defend you, Aiden. I know Karen's been giving you a hard time, and I'm not about to let her get away with it." She turned back to the board, her expression resolute. "Look, I know the HOA rules, and I understand the importance of maintaining the appearance of our community. But last night was an exceptional circumstance, and Aiden was just trying to be a good host." Karen scoffed, rolling her eyes. Exceptional circumstance. Guest parking in driveways is a clear violation of the rules, regardless of the circumstances. Samantha held up a hand, silencing her. Actually, that's not entirely true. The HOA bylaws do allow for temporary guest parking as long as it doesn't create a safety hazard or interfere with the flow of traffic. The board members murmured and nodded, and Aiden could see the color start to drain from Karen's face. And from what I saw last night, Samantha continued, Aiden's guests were parked neatly and out of the way. There was no obstruction of the sidewalk or the road. She turned to the board, her gaze steady. I think it's clear that Aiden did nothing wrong here. He was simply trying to accommodate his guests, and he shouldn't be punished for that. The room fell silent, and Aiden could feel the tension in the air. Karen looked like she was about to explode, but the board members seemed to be considering Samantha's words. Aiden held his breath, his heart pounding in his chest. This was his chance, his one-shot redemption. And with Samantha's unexpected intervention, he might just have a fighting chance. The board members sat in contemplative silence, their gazes shifting between Samantha and Karen. Aiden could practically feel the tension in the room, his palms sweating as he waited for them to make their decision. Finally, the HOA president, an elderly gentleman named Mr. Wilkins, cleared his throat and turned to Karen. Karen, I must say, I'm a bit concerned by the severity of the punishment you've proposed here, he said, his voice measured and thoughtful. Karen's eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to protest, but Mr. Wilkins raised a hand to silence her. Now, I understand the importance of upholding our community's rules and regulations, he continued, but it seems to me that Aiden's actions, while perhaps technically in violation, were not malicious or intentionally disruptive. He turned his gaze to Aiden, a hint of sympathy in his eyes. Aiden, I appreciate you taking the time to be here today and discuss this matter with us. And I must say, Ms. Samantha's points about the temporary guest parking allowance are quite valid. Aiden felt a surge of relief, his shoulders sagging ever so slightly. Perhaps there was hope after all. Mr. Wilkins turned back to the board, his expression thoughtful. I think, given the circumstances, a more reasonable approach would be to issue Aiden a written warning, along with a reminder of the HOA's guest parking policies. Fines and suspensions should be reserved for more egregious and repeated offenses. The other board members murmured in agreement, and Aiden could see the color rising in Karen's cheeks. She opened her mouth, no doubt ready to protest, but Samantha beat her to it. That sounds like a very fair and sensible solution, Mr. Wilkins, Samantha said, flashing the board a grateful smile. I'm sure Aiden will be sure to follow the rules going forward. Aiden nodded emphatically, his voice sincere. Absolutely. I appreciate your understanding, and I'll make sure to communicate the HOA's guest parking policies to any future visitors. Karen's jaw clenched, her eyes narrowing to slits. Aiden could practically feel the rage rolling off of her in waves, but he couldn't bring himself to care. He had won, and that was all that mattered. As the board members finalized their decision and the meeting adjourned, Aiden found himself shaking Samantha's hand with genuine gratitude. Thank you, Samantha, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know what I would have done without you. Samantha grinned, her eyes twinkling. Ah, I'll mention it. That's what neighbors are for, right? Aiden smiled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. The storm had passed, and he had emerged victorious. Now he just had to figure out how to keep Karen at bay for good. As Aiden left the community center, he couldn't help but feel a sense of relief and triumph. He had faced down the formidable Karen and emerged victorious, thanks in no small part to Samantha's unexpected intervention. But as he walked back to his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Karen was not one to give up easily, and Aiden knew that she would be simmering with resentment and determination to get her way. Sure enough, as he pulled into his driveway, he spotted Karen standing on her porch, her arms crossed, and her expression thunderous. Aiden braced himself, fully expecting another confrontation. But to his surprise, Karen simply glared at him and retreated back into her house, slamming the door behind her. Aiden blinked, momentarily taken aback by her uncharacteristic silence. Asterisk, maybe she's finally realized that she's not going to win this one, Asterisk, he thought, a spark of hope igniting within him. As he stepped inside his own home, he was greeted by the warm embrace of Samantha, who had been waiting for him. "You did it, Aiden," she exclaimed, her voice brimming with pride. "I knew you could stand up to that crazy woman." Aiden chuckled, his tension finally starting to dissipate. "I couldn't have done it without you, Samantha. I owe you big time." Samantha waved a dismissive hand. "Ah, don't worry about it. That's what friends are for, right?" She paused, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Besides, I've been wanting to put Karen in her place for ages. She's been a thorn in the side of this entire community for far too long." Aiden nodded in agreement, a newfound sense of camaraderie blossoming between them. "Well, I'm just glad it's over. For now, at least." Samantha's expression sobered, and she placed a hand on Aiden's shoulder. "I know Karen, Aiden. She's not going to let this go easily. You're going to have to stay vigilant." Aiden sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I figured as much, but with you on my side, I feel a lot more confident in my ability to handle her." Samantha grinned. "That's right, partner. From now on, we're in this together. And trust me, Karen doesn't stand a chance against the two of us." Aiden couldn't help but smile at her infectious enthusiasm. As daunting as the prospect of an ongoing feud with Karen might be, he couldn't deny the sense of relief and empowerment he felt. He was no longer alone in this battle, and with Samantha by his side, he knew that he had a fighting chance. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood, Aiden couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he had finally found a way to stand up to the tyrannical reign of HOA Karen.